Welcome to Restoration Beyond the Couch. I'm Dr. Lee Long, and in this episode, I'm joined by Michael Menard, author, speaker, and advocate for childhood trauma awareness. Michael's latest book, Greater Than Gravity, brings awareness to the impacts of trauma. His first book, The Kite That Couldn't Fly, tells the story of his own journey through trauma and resilience. In this episode, we talk about his mission to reduce the impact of childhood trauma for future generations. Together, we explore the lasting effects of early adversity and how hope, healing, and prevention can shape healthier lives. Your path to mental wellness starts here. Well, welcome, Mike Menard, to Restoration Beyond the Couch. It's so great to have you back on and honestly, just to see you again.
Thank you, Lee.
Yeah, you came on the first time to talk about your first book that sits over
Yes.
your right shoulder there, uh,
Yes.
The Kite That Couldn't Fly and Other May Avenue Stories. Yeah.
Yes.
Gosh, what a work of art. What a
Thank
fantastic
you.
book.
Thank you.
I mean,
Uh,
you to catch people up, what was the inspiration for that book?
so it's been the whole thing has been a wild journey, Lee, and you've been with me most of this time. But um, I'm the second oldest of 14 children. Had a wild childhood. I think a beautiful childhood, and in my later years, I found myself giving kind of a stand-up routine of the May Avenue stories, which were the most interesting, most entertaining.
Mhm.
But I shied away from any that were dark. Um, and then my wife, Emily, said, "Hey, you've been threatening to write that May Avenue book for 40 years. Why don't you do it?" So I buckled down and did it, and got my siblings together to agree on the content and the stories
Right.
and make sure my memory was correct.
There's a lot of wisdom there.
A lot. And it began a very beautiful journey for my siblings and I because we were close going into the writing of this book, but this whole process and the learning and the conversation, which is very healing in itself,
Yeah.
um, changed the relationship and is really helping, I guess, all of us. But they decided they wanted the stories that we didn't talk about published in the book.
Wow.
To tell the true story. So there's the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And so I did that and I wrote the book. And while I was in the writing of the book, I found you
Hmm.
and I found a small group of mental health experts
Hmm.
who I was sharing this with and looking for some wisdom that I could maybe pass on to the readers, so that there's some teaching that went on. And through that process, I started digging deep into my life and talking to you and other psychologists, psychiatrists, anthropologists. And when they read the manuscript, they said, "Hey, this is very serious stuff.
Hmm.
This wasn't just a wild, strange childhood. This was complex childhood trauma."
Right.
And I knew nothing about that, never heard that word before, never thought of my family as being having experienced childhood trauma, but it was a real stark awakening as
And
I got into the data. Yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead.
absolutely. What's so interesting about what you've said thus far is we don't conceptualize often. I shouldn't say all the time, but often we don't conceptualize the things we've been through as traumatic because it's just what we knew.
Yeah.
I remember growing up, one of my siblings is 25 years older than me. I have another one that's 20 years older than me, and I have another one that's 11 years older than me. And people would ask me, "Is that strange for you?" And I would say, I I guess I don't know that any different though.
Yeah.
And it's until we have the context of community that we start to understand, this might be unique and this
Yeah.
might not have been okay. And
Yeah.
and that's when that starts to, I guess, surface. And that's what it sounds like.
It's just it's I don't know what term to use other than mind blowing because
Hmm.
what you're saying is exactly right. I had I lost two brothers to heroin addiction and just thought, well, there's a high percentage of this problem in our country, so sad,
Hmm.
but it happens. Um, I had a I had a brother-in-law who I knew through 50 years of family relationships, my sister's husband. And he would tell his stories about his childhood trauma, and they were horrible, much worse than
Hmm.
the avenue. And he would just say, "Hey, we all had it tough. We just have to be good people." He ended up dying by suicide.
Mm.
And this was in the middle of me writing this book. So all these things are converging. And when they did his autopsy, they said he was 60 years old. They said his brain looked like the a man of 120 years old. It was
Wow.
gray and shrunken, and he had four mental disabilities, three metabolic that just kept coming.
Wow.
So putting these pieces together and realizing, whoa, and as I dug deeper, I was documenting all this and just going through massive interviews and research and found that, well, decided that I wasn't going to make The Kite That Couldn't Fly a self-help book because I wasn't qualified. So I just kept all that and published the book with a lump in my throat,
Hmm.
realizing what I found through that research was that my family, the 14, is a fair representation of society,
Mm.
and that the data now shows that 70% of all adults walking around in the United States, and I would say the world, have experienced at least one ACE or one type of childhood trauma. And
Yeah.
the classic, there's 10 types.
Right. And that's an
Um,
adverse childhood experience.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's exactly right. So, I found about 2% of the U.S. understands even what ACE is,
Right.
or they had no idea. So I found 70% of us are crippled by it. I found that if you have six or more ACEs,
Hmm.
you will die 20 years too soon.
Hmm.
And that's a fact. That's not supposition. That's not saying the sky is falling. It is true. Um, and a
And
whole bunch of other stats about alcoholism and so on.
and just to take some of the, because you're exactly right, those are facts. To take some of that sensationalized, potential sensationalized thinking off of that is part of the reason why. And when you're talking about metabolic dysfunction that was found in your brother-in-law, it's this: when we live in stress, it hits our immune system. Therefore, our immune system begins to decrease a bit. It
Yes,
increases cortisol, increases our insulin production, because when you are in fight or flight, you either need to have the insulin ready in your muscles to make them go to fight, or you need to have that ready to flight. And so
exactly.
there are in these internal mechanisms that make sense, that we were designed this way for the purpose of survival.
Yeah,
But when the stress and the trauma and the angst and the anxiety is metaphysical, or it's emotional, and we can't fight anything, we don't need to utilize all of that. It stays in our body,
yeah,
and it
yep.
takes a toll
Yeah,
on
it's
our
and
physicality.
and at least so few people understand that and know that, and they
Hmm.
don't understand why they feel the way they feel.
Right.
And as part of this research, which ends up as part of the next book, which we'll get to, but I found two shocking, I found what you just described, but I discovered that as a layperson, not
Hmm.
as a doctor, and and it is, when a child experiences this type of trauma, everything changes.
Hmm.
Everything changes. The architecture of the development of their brain changes.
That's right.
So the pleasure centers are disrupted. So
Right.
that's why we have so much addiction.
Hmm.
Um, and another just shocking revelation from a book called Brain Energy by Dr. Palmer. He's proven that those who experience trauma, it manifests itself into medical disorder, into mental disorders, depression, anxiety, and so on. those disorders at the cellular level
Mm-hmm.
create pathways for biological diseases.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're just screwed. I mean, you're going to have mental illness. You're going to have, and if you have a mental illness, you have an 87% probability of developing a second mental illness, just manifesting itself from the first.
Right. It's a
So
waterfall. Yeah.
it's a downward spiral
Mm-hmm.
that so many people are falling victim to that, I see every stat, I see every health indicator now
Mm-hmm.
very differently,
Yeah.
very differently.
Yeah.
Because I used to think it was just bad choices on
Mm-hmm.
some people's parts, but that's not it at all. So I put that book out, not expecting anything, um, but it's had a transformational response. And what I'm hearing more than anything is thank you for sharing. And
Mm.
now, for the first time in my life, I don't feel alone.
Yeah.
So it's, all of these things are coming in, Lee, into the center of the hub called childhood trauma that are manifesting. And those who experience childhood trauma almost always find ways to isolate themselves because of the shame,
Sure.
because of the hurt. And we're built, we're built to be relational. That's how God made us.
That's right.
But the minute you lose that community, or talking to someone who cares, everything gets worse. Everything gets worse. So it's something that a snowball that rolls very quickly down that
Mhm.
causes destruction and devastation.
It really is, which, and spoiler alert, there are ways in which you can heal your body. There are
Yes.
ways in which if you experience trauma, if you seek help, if you seek connection, if you there are bridges and ladders and pathways out of the depths of despair there. So
Yeah.
that, I've seen folks, I've been doing this for over almost 3 decades now. And I've been in the mental health field, and I've seen so many people go through so much heartache and pain, and I've seen them come through it, and I've
Yeah.
seen them resolve their their physical issues. And yes, there's always going to be a scar there. There will always be a scar.
Yeah.
Yet that scar does not have to dominate your life.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you are saying that you and your siblings are finding.
We After the publishing of the book, or
Hmm.
during that process, um, we started to talk to people like you, like to talk to Dr. Schiraldi. I have this small group of people who have come to my side and help guide this writing and this exploration. Um, but I had one brother who has been um, suffering from depression, anxiety, anger, and
Mm,
he got the worst of the trauma
mm,
in our family. He got the
right.
worst, and it's all covered in the book. But he, through the years, he would regularly say to the brothers, "Hey, it's Dad's birthday. Let's go piss on his grave."
Hmm.
And just with anger, and we'd laugh it off. Of course, we would
Right.
never do that, but it just showed. And when I started doing this research and understood for the first time his pain and where it was coming from and what was happening to his body,
Right.
we all rallied around him and said, "Hey, here's what we found." Another brother, my oldest brother, was suffering from anxiety and depression for 30 years. The research in the book, for the Greater Than Gravity book, looking at those healing interventions that you have shared, we've talked
Hmm.
at length about, he decided to seek help. And within 7 sessions, employing EMDR, it was all gone. He tried every drug, every therapy, and is a man of deep faith and has been trying to pray that away,
Hmm.
but he didn't understand. And
Right.
so, Lee, the tragedy in my mind is, the good news is there's a hope of healing. There is the hope of healing, and it looks like,
Absolutely.
I believe it's very possible. But the majority of the people, I don't know how many, but I'm going to find out, the majority of people who are suffering never make that connection
Mm-hmm.
that there's something they can do. They live in quiet desperation.
Mm-hmm.
They have bad thoughts. They have eating disorders. They have marital issues. They have no idea of where it came from. So therefore they won't seek help. And you and I talked about, your personal, your organization's backlog of
Mm-hmm.
people needing help,
Mm-hmm.
particularly from childhood trauma. And you said once that if we are successful in raising the awareness that we need to raise in this country, that there'll be a flood that that you as therapists could never handle.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to find ways. This is the the journey. We need to find ways for a certain percentage of those who might achieve awareness and healing without the need of having a face to face.
Yeah.
But understanding when it comes to the point, and you actually remember, Lee, we drew out on a board the levels of
Mm-hmm.
disorders and at which point knowledge and reading and the self-help book is not going to help. They need
Right.
they need interventions, and we need to find a way to get that intervention. And I've been hearing from, just tell you a very quick story. A lady knocked on the door, and I had my book in my hand. I was walking out, and she was trying to sell me pest control. Young, energetic, beautiful, beautiful young woman, and she said, "What's the book? What's the book?" And I said, "Oh, um, yeah, I'm on a journey here." And I just told her, 30 seconds of, and she started weeping.
Mm.
She's 23, and I said, "Hey, let's sit down. Let's not talk about the bugs. Let's just what chord did I strike?" And she's 23, as I said, and she said she was sexually molested by her older brother, and she doesn't know what to do, and it's affecting her, and she believes she cannot talk to her parents about it, and she knows she needs therapy, but she doesn't have the money.
Mm.
She's saving up at 23 to find someone who could heal.
Mm.
Um, and so it's just everywhere.
It
It's
is.
just it's just everywhere. So, we've talked about our responsibility that when we open someone up, unzip them, may use the
Yeah.
word unzip to let their heart show,
Right.
that if we do that and not bring some remedy or healing to them, then we're being negligent. And I don't want to put myself in the category of a healer, but I am I can be, as you've reminded me, you actually brought the thought into my mind that I don't need to be the healer. I need to be the ambulance.
Right.
I need to be the conduit that gets information to the sufferers
Mm-hmm.
and lead them to the solution.
Right.
I'm not going to do it myself, right? I'm not going to do the healing myself.
Right. And so that's a perfect pivot point. So
Yeah,
talk to us about this ambulance that you've created.
yeah, yeah. So it's I find myself, it's unusual for me to almost be speechless when I try to describe this journey.
Mm.
And I made a decision when I um, I'll have to tell you one of the case stories in the book to link with the reason why. So I was getting and cataloging all of this information. I now have 394 research reports and 60 books that I've read on the subject.
Mm-hmm.
So I put myself up with most experts as far as knowledge, not therapy, not the ability to deliver therapy, but what I know and the knowledge I've accumulated. And also I have this stream of people because of the kite book reaching me and trying to tell me their story. And I'm saying, hey, I'm not that guy. I'm just an engineer who wrote a book, but they believe and are pushing that I have part of the answer, but I
Mm.
don't.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh, I need it. So this one gentleman, his name was Trent. Um, at age 52, he turned manic, suicidal, and
Yeah.
he had had a normal life right up to that point. He just said he went crazy. He lost his mind.
Right.
He tried to commit suicide 3 times. He's lost his family, lost his job. He's desolate, he's desperate, and he doesn't know which way to turn.
Yeah.
So I took his call. I said, let's just have a talk. And I said, hey, you need to get to the bottom of it. And long story short, talked him into going to see his estranged mother, who's an addict, one ace. I asked him about his father, didn't know his father, second
Hmm.
ace.
Hmm.
And he told me that, the only thing he knew that was strange was that he was put in a special school at Duke University for trying to kill his sister when he was 4 years old with a bat.
Whoa.
He got the records, found out that he was an ideal student, no violence, no nothing, ended up talking to his mother, extracting from her, and she broke down and admitted that she started beating him with a spoon when he was 6 weeks old
Oh my gosh.
and didn't know what to do with him when he was 4, so she put him in this institution just to get rid of him.
Right.
So think about that. Think about that cortisol. Think
Yeah. The
about that stress
rejection.
response.
Right.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Right.
And I've learned, we hear the term, you're quite familiar with the term, the sacred 60 days, the first 60 days of life, how critical is to development.
Hmm.
So talked him into going into a couple of clinics, had some brain scans and found damage in 9 parts of his brain. Went through all types of experimental intensive therapy, and he was on the good road. In fact, ready to go on the road with me on a speaking tour once I released this next book. And he was describing the dysfunction, and he said, "Mike, it's a force I can't even describe. It's something that just pulls me to the ground. It's a force greater than gravity."
Hmm.
And a bomb went off in my mind,
Right.
saying, "That's it. That's what
Yeah.
this force is, and we have to create a force that's even greater than that."
Right.
And so I decided to write the book and to name it "Greater Than Gravity: How Childhood Trauma is Pulling Down Humanity,"
Mm.
because that's what I believe and that's what I found.
Yeah.
And I also believe that the world of healers and childhood trauma are so focused on healing that next patient, and the researchers are so funneled into into their lane that no one was connecting the dots. So this layman, myself, decided to attempt to triangulate this data. And what I found is being published in this book, Greater Than Gravity. And it's a book that has 3 parts. The first part is what this problem is, so we understand and define it. So, what happens to the child's brain? All stuff that you know, Lee, but this is stuff I want to get into the hands of people who don't know.
Right.
The second book is about the prevalence, to talk about the epidemic. So, just a couple of quick facts. And this data, Lee, that'll be laid out in the book is irrefutable. So I cross-reference, I find multiple sources. It's from the government, it's from the World Health Organization, it's original research, and found that childhood trauma is the third largest cause of death in the United States.
Mm.
Cancer and heart disease are the only two that takes more lives than childhood trauma. 11.5 million adults have experienced 6 or more ACEs.
Hmm.
They will die 20 years too soon. What that means is that there's 787 people dying every day directly caused by childhood trauma. And 9 of those are children under the age of 18. 5 of them from murder at the hands of their parents, and the others from suicide.
Right.
So 787, that's greater than diabetes, COVID, and automobile accidents together. And that's every day. So it is the number one health crisis in our country. The cost of trauma in the United States is $14 trillion a year. greater than the defense budget, 60% of the GDP of the United States.
Yeah.
And why has no one hit the alarm button? So I decided to write this book, and the third part of that book is it's called The Promise of Healing,
Hmm.
The Hope of Healing. And that talks about what we can do, what's available today, and what we need to do three things: raise awareness, bring healing interventions to everyone who needs it, and then drive prevention by going upstream and teaching parents how to parent. You've used the analogy, Lee, that I put in the book about people drinking from the poison river and how it's making them sick. And the first thing we have to do is stop them from drinking the water. Then we have to go up and stop the pollution.
Right.
So it's a very powerful, kind of metaphor. So this book is. Oh, go ahead, Lee. You have a
Well,
question?
no, I think that just to add to what you're saying is I think that, it's not that trauma begats trauma, but unresolved trauma, there's the knowledge of hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
And it's a legacy that if it's not disrupted or interrupted in some way, that you're right, it does create a legacy there. And
Yes.
that's a painful legacy to
Uh,
continue.
yeah. You do the math of the number of people that are hurt. About 40% of those who have experienced childhood trauma will exert trauma on their children.
Mhm.
That's what keeps this. That's what keeps this monster alive. I sometimes I call it the monster. Sometimes I call it the boogeyman. We got to put the boogeyman down.
Yeah.
We got to find a way. It's so massive. The
Mhm.
problem is so huge. It's not an excuse to not do it. But also revealed in this book is that childhood trauma is the number one cause for addictions, alcoholism, suicide, and pathway to prison. So the numbers, like 90% of all addicts have experienced four or more ACEs.
Mhm.
98% of all people attempting suicide have experienced childhood trauma.
Mhm.
94% of all males incarcerated in the United States have four or more ACEs.
Yeah, and when you think about the fact that these are adverse childhood experiences, when you talk about ACEs, it's adverse childhood experiences. It's like, how do you take away these adversities that are more atrocities from people's childhood? But that's the call. That's the call to action.
There and we have to. I keep reminding myself that there's three prongs. We have to wake people up, that's awareness. We have to deliver healing to those that are
Mhm.
hurting, and we have to prevent it. So
Mhm.
these are very closely related. I had the opportunity to meet and interview 10 staff members from Treehouse Recovery,
Mhm.
which is a addiction recovery organization. They have four sites around the United States with extremely successful results. And why? The first thing they do is address the childhood trauma before they even try to stop the addiction.
Yeah.
And because of that, that's the thing behind the thing. That's the thing behind the curtain that nobody brings forward. But they have a method, and they have people like you on staff that bring it forward, drive those healing interventions through all the things you know,
Mhm.
and then they say, let's solve this problem. And
Right.
the second thing for solving the problem is creating a tribe or community
Right.
and
And that
love.
and that whole process is so helpful. And it is, I know a large couple of handfuls of programs out there that do the exact same thing, that have or similar things that have really wonderful results like you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's the exciting thing,
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
to like you're saying, like there's hope out there.
Yeah.
There's truly hope, and there's people that are on this mission of making sure that it is well understood that we want to help you come out of that poison stream where trauma has flowed downhill, so to speak, and you've been the unfortunate recipient
Yeah.
of all of these adverse childhood experiences, and we want to help you get cleaned up, cleaned off, and heading, not that they're dirty, but we want to help you wash off that
Yeah.
experience.
Moving from the darkness to the light.
That's right.
And just
That's right.
this I've learned, and I use this analogy in the book, that I'm finding that those who have suffered,
Hmm.
we have two type of nervous systems. I'm just learning this. We have a sympathetic
Hmm.
and we have a parasympathetic.
Right. Same
Sympathetic
system.
is
Yeah, same system, two different places it goes, right? Yeah.
right. One is fight or flight, right?
Right.
And the other is love, learning, growth.
Yeah, it's
It's
the rest and digest. That's right.
rest and digest. So I think of them as mindsets, but they really are part of your nervous system.
That's right.
And what happens when you had repeated exposure? I think of our brain as a radio station. We have two stations, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic.
Hmm.
And the sympathetic, what we hear is, you're not good enough, you'll never be good enough, and not knowing why we feel that way. What we have to find a way of doing is changing the channel for
Hmm.
them so that they can move. They don't have a hope of healing while they're in that sympathetic mindset, because they're on guard. They're not going to hear what we have to say.
Hmm.
So the things I used to think of as woo woo or foo foo,
Right.
mindfulness,
Yeah.
breathing,
Hmm.
yoga, activity, movement,
Right.
nutrition, they're critical. They're critical to self-care,
They
self-care.
that you're so spot on, Mike, and I love hearing you talk about this because the I look at the world and relationships and humanity and even our internal sense as everything's pendulating, right? It's or oscillating, but there's really a pendulum. And to be in your sympathetic nervous system, we have to be there, right?
Mhm.
Because if you go over to too much of the parasympathetic, you will die. And so it is this oscillation, this
It's a
this
beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
pendulating, and it's like that's the balance of breathing. It's in and out. If you hold your breath in, you'll die. If
Right,
you hold
right.
your breath out, it's
Yeah,
going to stress you out till you take a deep breath. And so it's
yeah.
that I just think that it's the beauty of like I love what you're bringing up because it
Yeah.
is that beauty of the back and forth.
And every expert, I should say every expert that I trust, because I've met some that I don't trust, everyone
That's
that
right.
I trust,
Yeah.
um, they're saying the same things.
Mm,
They're saying the same. The experts, the authors, they're saying the same thing.
yeah.
You need this basket of those things we're talking about,
Right.
and one of them being interventions to resolve that trauma.
Right.
But there's things we can teach people to do, and I wear an Apple Watch sometimes. This is time to breathe, and I just shut. Don't bother me with the. I know how to breathe. Till I learned this research of what happens, and I started practice every morning. I start with 3 minutes of silent, deep breathing,
Mm,
and it's made a world of difference in my mentality.
right.
Just one little thing,
Right.
one little thing.
Right.
Um, a couple of healers have told me stories about severely mentally ill people who, until they put them on a keto diet,
Yes.
an all protein diet, they
Yeah.
had no progress.
Right.
So it's,
Yeah.
we body, mind, soul,
Hmm.
spirit, it's all connected. And it's
It
biblical.
is.
It's throughout the Bible.
It is. And the interesting thing about all of that, and just you talked about the ketogenic piece of it, it is a really that I have seen the white paper studies on that, the
Yeah.
peer-reviewed studies. I have actually listened to a man who has been on the ketogenic diet. Now, this isn't everybody rush out and get on keto, but
Right.
there is a scientific way that this is creating differences for people, and it's the brain loves ketones. And we learned this when kids were epileptic. back in the, I believe it was back in the 60s, and we didn't know what to, or maybe it was the 20s. I don't recall, but it was, we didn't know what to do with them. And they found that when they fasted, their epilepsy would decrease. And so that's how this ketogenic
Yeah.
force or this ketogenic idea of dieting became a thing. And now it can be seen as a fad diet, but that's not what you're talking about. What
No.
you're talking about is these people with, it is bipolar and it is schizophrenia, that where they've seen that on a ketogenic diet, the brain gets the ketones and it gets what it needs. And that 5 years in, that these people are not cycling through their moods like they were.
Yeah.
And
It's
it can be a healing thing.
it's yeah. It's
Now,
I'm
that's not
seeing
to
it.
say, sorry to interrupt you. That's
No,
not to
no,
say if you're struggling with a diagnosis of bipolar that you just go out there and try a ketogenic diet and say, to heck with the medication, to heck with the therapy. And I know you're not saying that, Mike. I'm
no,
just
not at
saying,
all. You're right. You're absolutely right. But I have the personal belief
mhm,
that a protein-rich diet, clean eating, which is not, it's not keto. It includes vegetables, it includes fresh foods. Because what I'm finding is that inflammation is our enemy.
it is. It's behind all
These
diseases.
the stress response
Mhm.
increases inflammation throughout our body, our organs, our veins, constricts veins, cardiac disease, right? Foods that we eat, the processed foods that we're consuming over the last probably 60, 70 years are all inflammatory.
Mhm.
If you go on there was this 30-day challenge. I forgot the type of diet. It was basically a high protein diet. A book was written on it. It's just eating clean.
Oh, the whole 30.
The whole 30. It's the same thing.
Mhm.
It's I read in there about what causes inflammation in our body in
Mhm.
almost everybody.
Mhm.
And if you eat meat and vegetables or protein and vegetables, you will that goes away. That stuff goes away. The brain swelling goes, it's just poison to us.
Right.
So I'm learning, and again, this is all kind of tight wrapped up in the book, is that we've lost our way. Humanity has lost our way.
Right.
And we really are, the childhood trauma thing is just one of a handful of things that modern life
Mhm.
is using. And, I believe it's the enemy, it's Satan that's planting these seeds, that's destroying children, putting little time bombs in their body so that when they decades later explodes into mental illness and metabolic diseases. It's we were raised, God made us to be relational.
Right.
For 10 million years we were raised by tribes and nurtured
Right.
and spoiled. And think of the natives, how they always had their child with them in the on their body
Right.
wherever they went. We've lost that. We've lost it. So it's just compounding. The stress is compounding, and we're the richest country in the world. We're also the sickest country in the world.
Right. Right. And we want to point to healthcare on that. And okay, we can look at that, but it's also self-care that we need to look at.
Of course, we're Dr. Folletti, um, the one of the founders of the original ACEs study, said that we're all focused on the smoke when we should be focused on the
Right.
fire.
That's right.
And what happens if you just if you have smoke, the natural reaction is to fan the smoke away when actually what you're doing is feeding the fire oxygen.
Right.
We have to get back to that thing behind the thing. And this is all stuff I'm learning in the last couple of years, and decided with the encouragement of people like you and Dr. Schiraldi and Kristen Trudeau that you know of, to hit the alarm button, to say that I
Right.
have the right. I
Right.
now have the knowledge. I have lived experience. And
Right.
I have now consumed massive research that said I have to raise my hand high and hit that alarm. And, I'm going to use the goal um, the goal is going to be to end childhood trauma. And I know it's unrealistic. It's actually unachievable. But if
It
you don't
certainly is
plan
a good
big,
goal, though,
if
right?
you don't plan big, you're not going to do
Exactly.
big things, right?
That's right.
And I also think it's not so much about the goal, but it's who you and I become in the pursuit of that goal.
Right.
Doing things for humanity, doing things outside of our what we thought was our capability.
Right.
And I'm a little bit, yeah, I'm gonna say panicked, not really panicked, but in a hurry
Hmm.
because now that I have this knowledge, there's a saying, we are each responsible for the evil that we're aware of that we do not cure. So it's a heavy burden, Lee, and I
Hmm.
know you carry that as well. Um, it's just it can consume you. That responsibility can consume you. It
It
must. Yeah.
well, it can until you realize that love covers it all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I cannot make anybody heal, but I can sure offer opportunities. I can offer relationship. I can offer things to people, and
Yeah.
they can do what they are going to do with it.
Yeah. I think it's so. What you said is so powerful. This element of love, because in the book it shows it. I list in my hierarchy
Hmm.
the components that are required for healing. And the first one, based on my knowledge and learning and personal
Hmm.
experience,
Hmm.
is love. We
Absolutely.
have to learn how to love each
Hmm.
other.
Hmm.
I got to meet 10 guys that were in recovery at the treehouse. Met them individually, had coffee with them, and every one of them, when I parted, they hugged me and they told me they loved me. Men,
Hmm.
70, 50,
Yeah.
30, with their heart, meaning it. We have telling our own family members we love them.
Right.
So this has got to be part of the push. We've got to bring love back.
Have to.
And
And
it
the only
sounds woo woo, but it's so critical to our well being.
That's right. And the only way we get there is through authenticity.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's the safety, right? And it's that safety that all these ACEs, that all these adverse childhood experiences, all these traumas take away safety. It takes away felt safety. And in the theory that I've spent so much of my time and research on, there is that the first goal of this theory is helping the patient achieve felt safety. Because how will we move forward if there isn't felt safety? Because you will be in a major fight or flight.
yeah.
You want to talk about sympathetic nervous system? When you don't feel safe, you're not going to be able to be in the middle.
I
And so
like
you're
that.
right.
I like that, Lee. And really, that translates. How can you make someone feel safe? That's what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah, it's to help
So
them feel safe.
how do you help them feel safe?
Right.
And the first thing you've got to do is see them,
Hmm.
right? You
Yeah,
got
it's
to see them.
authenticity.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. And then they have to see themselves.
yeah,
And that's really hard. And so that second goal is perceived functionality, because they have to believe that they know that they can care for themselves. Because when we're children and we experience all of these horrible things, what we believe is that the environment will not take care of us. Therefore, we're screwed.
yeah,
And the reality is, no, the environment was just combative. Not
yeah,
just. The
yeah,
environment was combative. It's
yeah,
not about you not being able to be cared for. Now, you weren't cared for. And so it's learning, how do I care for myself then? I wasn't taught that. And so
yeah,
it's teaching people how to do that. And it's a very, very powerful
yeah.
space. So, so Mike, will you tell us about, the kite that couldn't fly, you've written these amazing stories. I love them. I know everybody that I know that it's read it has loved it. You're a very, very entertaining storyteller,
Thank
a
you, Lee.
fantastic storyteller. You're a fantastic writer. And so you wrote The Kite That Couldn't Fly. You're hearing all of these stories. You're recognizing the weight of your experience and that of your siblings. You start to look at, what am I going to do with all of this? You've got the book Greater Than Gravity that I know comes out sometime in this year.
Fall, sometime in the fall, yeah.
Okay. And so I know that there's one more piece in here that I definitely would feel remiss if we didn't cover. And that was the United Against Childhood Trauma.
Yeah.
So tell
Great.
us about
So
that.
that's where it's all coming together, Lee.
Yeah.
So, this journey, the kite, I realized, the moral of the story of the kite is kind of universal. And I didn't intend it to be that way, but it has ended up being that way. That can a kite that couldn't fly win first prize at the Grand Kankakee Kite Contest?
Right.
Well, you would think no,
Right.
but it did. Can a boy raised in trauma and poverty ex, you know, become a healthy, happy, um, functional human being that contributes to society? You would say no, but I did, and so have some of my siblings. But also some of them. So I excelled. Some of them collapsed under the weight of my
Right.
siblings, and
Right.
that's us. That's society.
Right.
Some are built with more resilience. I don't know the so I became, in my mind, I'm now the kite. I'm the kite that couldn't fly. I can fly. And then the next book shares everything I know. But that book ends with the conclusion said, we have to unite. We have to unite healers, corporations, government, policy, schools. We have to unite against this trauma. We
Right.
have to create a force that's greater than the force of gravity.
Very
So
good.
I founded this organization. It's now a full blown corporation, 501c3. Um, and I have the first committee I've created is the mental health committee, which you have graciously joined.
Yes. Thank you for
So
that.
yeah, and we, it's still in the formation.
Hmm.
I'm going to time the release, the press release on UACT and make it public at the same time I launch the book. And so it's going to be an organization that will have three departments, and no surprise, awareness, healing, and prevention. And I've got a master plan that I've pulled together of things. The things that are kind of the top of the list is to create a handful of online training courses using my mental health board to begin to raise awareness to different audiences, teachers, social workers. These are there's hundreds of thousands of those in the country, but they are not informed.
Right.
So create these educational modules that are be available online, create a master mega website. Imagine going to that website and the first thing it asks you is, what language do you want to talk? Do you want to speak? And it'll speak to you in your language. And we will use AI governed by the boundaries we put on it
Hmm.
of what advice that system can give people at the highest level, those with the lowest dysfunction, of things that we're talking about that we know are safe, cannot hurt them, but also have them take an online test to have them determine their level of well-being and whether or not there should be a flag waving to, we suggest you get to professional help,
Hmm.
put your zip code in, and within 24 hours, you'll have an appointment with a healer who is certified by UACT. So UACT, we're going to create certification training for teachers, healers, not therapists, because that's a different, but we might offer that to say, are you a UACT certified therapist? Meaning, do you know the basics?
Right.
Do you know the neurobiology of the
Right.
sufferer? Because Lee, Many don't.
Right.
UACT is going to raise awareness through billboards, advertisements. We're going to create these courses, these handful of courses that are going to be safe and available online. We're going to have we're going to have mothers going home with their babies, each taking a kit with them that has some type of tangible thing that reminds them of what they have to do each day, the importance of the first 60 days, their responsibility, and how if they don't do these basics, they're dooming their child to a life of misery.
Yeah.
Uh, 57% of all the births in the United States are mothers without fathers. In the city of um, Baltimore, 92% of all babies born in 1924 were born to teenagers without fathers. What's their future?
Yeah.
Those girls know nothing. They're hoping grandma's going to help, but what if grandma's not there? So those are the time bombs that we talk about
Yeah.
prevention.
It's such a that's right, and it's such a painful proposition, and just knowing that UACT, again, it stands for United Against Childhood Trauma. I love that. I love that. I love the United Against Childhood Trauma because it's to your point, it's not condemning anyone. Love is where we have to start.
Exactly. No blame.
It's
Right.
right. It's,
Yeah.
I always say blame and fault are the B word and the F word, and we don't speak that way in my office.
I like that. I
But
like that.
I think at the end of the day, it's about a loving, kind resource that's an offering out to the world.
Yes.
And it's about making sure that people have what they feel like they need
Yeah.
to rise up so that this
So
gravity doesn't hold them down.
so I got giant plans and
Hmm.
ready to pull the trigger. And the launch of the book is really the trigger. I'm going to have a big bang with PR and all that. But I need $200 million in 2026. I need $500 million in 2027 to do all these things and to have an army of people.
Right.
So my plan, if each person suffering in the United States gave $10, we'd have $180 million to work with.
Right.
It won't work that way. So I've developed a tool that allows corporations, I do it for them, to analyze and give you an example. Johnson and Johnson, my old employer, 132,000 employees. 90,000 of them have experienced childhood trauma.
Hmm.
5,000 of them will turn to intravenous drugs because of childhood trauma. 13,000 of them will die 20 years too soon. But more importantly, speaking the corporate talk, they're losing 1.7 billion a year in productivity losses because of absenteeism from mental illness,
Right.
from childhood trauma. So I have a plan. I'm going to, as soon as I get these books in my hand, which is this week, I'm sending a plea out to 10 CEOs, Johnson and Johnson, Microsoft, um, Salesforce, Starbucks, and I'm giving them their stats. I'm going to give them a very high level. This is what's happening to this is your employee layout,
Yeah.
and this is who UACT is, and here's a copy of the book, and I'm asking you to join UACT and to be a contributor. I want 5 million each for the next 10 years from each of them. Ask big.
Yeah.
They can say no, but once a year, there's going to be a full page ad in the Wall Street Journal that says, "Did you act? Did you act?" Right? And there'll be the lists of the corporate sponsors and the amount they've contributed and show the stats of how many things have changed, whatever those stats are. But bring the awareness to the front and get corporations panicked.
Yeah.
You know what FOMO is?
Oh yeah. The fear of missing out.
So I'm going to try to develop a um, a movement
Yeah.
that will get corporations. How else are we going to fund it? The government's not going to do it. They haven't spent a dime on treating or raising awareness to childhood trauma. And yet it's the greatest health I'm sending a book and a letter to RFK Jr. and saying, you really want to make America healthy again?
Yeah.
Join UACT,
Yeah.
right?
Mike, I think your goals and your dreams and your hopes and your passion are beautiful.
Thank you.
And I really hope that the people that are listening to you and me right now, I really hope that they're moved to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And the best way for them to be a part of it would be to go to UACT now,
Yes.
UACT now, NOW dot
.com.
com,
Yep.
and act with us.
Yes.
Like, let's band together. Let's brothers in arms, sisters in arms. Let's come together as everyone in arms, and let's figure out, like you said, if everybody would just give a little of their time, a little of their compassion, a little bit of their resources. And
Yeah.
I think that if we can come together to you act now, UACTNOW.com. And
Right.
I think that let's go change the world.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
As part of because of the kite book, a mayor of a small town in Illinois reached out and said, we have a alcohol and drug addiction epidemic in our town. It's killing people. It's destroying families. I have a hint that childhood trauma is behind it.
Mm,
Would you organize a town hall meeting and share what you've learned? Now, he knows nothing about the Greater Than Gravity book.
right.
On August 15th, I'm going to give a keynote speech at a town hall and hope to pack the house and hope to use that as the launch date of the movement, of the book, of the website. Um, and think about communities. Imagine creating UACT coalitions within
Mhm.
each community,
Right.
right? So I
Yeah.
don't have the model, but maybe we can create a model. Maybe we can use
Yeah.
this Wilmington, Illinois,
The
as
test
the
case. Yeah.
launch test case.
Right.
We know one thing: attempting to help is not going to hurt, right?
Yes, and as long as that help is helpful.
Of
That's
course.
that's always my caveat because I see so much in my field where they're trying to help and really they're not.
That's why I have my expert Lee Long and his committee to bless and endorse and agree upon do no harm, right?
Right. Right.
Because I might, if it's Mike Menard, I might say things that'll send somebody sideways. But it's your job
Yeah.
and gift to do that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I can say this is blessed by this committee.
Yeah.
It's not Mike Menard, it's UACT.
Right. Right. Well,
So
Mike, thank you so much for being with us today.
thank you, Lee.
This is
Yeah,
such a you
always
are a
great.
blessing. You are such a just such a gem of a human being. And I'm thankful
Oh,
for
thank
you.
you.
I'm thankful for your passion. I'm thankful for your not giving up. And so I hope
Thank
that
you.
as this reaches the listeners, that I hope our listeners are I hope they see the vision and I hope they
Great.
act. So
Great.
thank you for
And Lee, they can reach me through the website. So, I'll make the offer to anyone listening that if you have an idea, if you have a question, if you have $1, just call me.
there it
All
is.
right, Lee, thank you very much. Good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Yeah.